A single father, 2 jobs, 1 impossible battle. I made a choice that night. The wrong choice or maybe the right one. I still don't know. 3 days. That's all I had left before a judge would decide if I deserved to keep my daughter. 3 days before the state could rip Alice from my arms and hand her over to a woman who'd already abandoned her once. 3 days to somehow prove that love mattered more than the zeros in a bank account. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, I was just trying to get home. After running 2 jobs back to back, 14 hours under car hoods and serving coffee to people who looked right through me, I could barely keep my eyes open. The storm hit hard, rain hammering my windshield like bullets. Lightning cracked the sky wide open. I just wanted to see Alice, hold her, remind myself why I was killing myself day after day. Then I saw them. Twin girls standing in the rain beside a car that cost more than I'd make in 5 years, stranded, scared, waving for help. I should have kept driving. God knows I had enough problems of my own. But something in their faces, that helpless, desperate look, it reminded me of Alice, of being abandoned when you need someone most. So I stopped. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that those twin girls had a father. A powerful father. A father who would walk into a courtroom in 72 hours, sit behind a bench, and hold my entire world in his hands. Sometimes the people you save are the ones who end up saving you. And sometimes one act of kindness becomes the only thing standing between you and losing everything. I pulled over, my tires splashing through puddles as I came to a stop behind the luxury sedan. The rain was relentless, turning the world into a blur of grey and black. I sat there for a moment, engine running, watching the 2 figures huddle together under the slim shelter of their car's open door. "What are you doing, Ethan? You don't have time for this." But I was already unbuckling my seatbelt. I stepped out into the storm, rain immediately soaking through my work shirt. The twin girls looked up as I approached. Identical faces, maybe 19 or 20, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my rent. Their mascara ran in dark streaks down their cheeks. Car trouble. I called over the thunder. The one on the left nodded, shivering. It just died. We've been here for almost an hour. Our phones are dead and no one stopped. Until you, the other one added, her voice small and grateful. I glanced at the car. A Mercedes, sleek and black, the kind of vehicle I only saw when wealthy clients brought them into the garage. I walked around to the hood. "Mind if I take a look?" "Please," they said in unison. I popped the hood, rain pouring down my face as I examined the engine. It didn't take long to spot the problem. Corroded battery terminals, loose connection. Simple fix, but not something they could handle out here in the storm. "Your battery's shot," I said, closing the hood. "You're not going anywhere tonight. Not without a jump or a tow." The girls exchanged worried glances. "We can call our father," one of them said. But her voice lacked conviction. "He's probably busy, though." "He's always busy." Something in the way she said it made me pause. I recognized that tone, disappointment wrapped in acceptance. "Look," I said, "I can give you a ride. There's a hotel about 15 minutes from here. You can call a tow in the morning." "You do that?" the girl on the right asked, genuine surprise in her eyes. I shrugged. "Can't leave you out here. Come on." They grabbed their bags and climbed into my beat-up Honda, a car that probably looked like a joke next to their Mercedes. But neither of them complained. They just looked relieved. "I'm Sophie," the one in the passenger seat said as I pulled back onto the highway. "This is my sister Maya." "Ethan," I replied, focusing on the road. The wipers could barely keep up with the rain. "Thank you for stopping," Maya said from the back seat. "Really? Most people, they see us and they keep going." "People are scared these days," I said. "Can't blame them." "But you stopped," Sophie pointed out. I was quiet for a moment. "I have a daughter. She's 6. If she was ever stranded somewhere, scared in the rain, I'd hope someone would stop for her. The car fell silent except for the drumming of rain on the roof. What's her name? Maya asked softly. Alice. That's beautiful, Sophie said, then hesitantly, do you get to see her often? My jaw tightened. The question hit harder than she could have known. Every chance I get, which might not be for much longer. I hadn't meant to say that. It just slipped out, the weight I'd been carrying finally finding a crack to escape through. What do you mean? Maya asked. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Her mother and we're divorced. She's trying to take full custody. Says I'm not fit to be a father because I work too much, don't make enough money. We go to court in 3 days. That's horrible, Sophie whispered. It is what it is, I said, though my voice betrayed me. I'm doing everything I can. 2 jobs, saving every penny, showing up to every school event. But sometimes it feels like it's not enough, like the world's already decided I'm not good enough. Maya leaned forward between the seats. Our father's like that, always working. We barely see him. He has all the money in the world, but we'd trade it all just to have dinner with him once a week without him checking his phone. He thinks providing means everything, Sophie added quietly. He doesn't understand that we just want him there. Present, that's all. I glanced at her. You should tell him that. We've tried, Maya said. He doesn't listen. Says we don't understand what it takes to maintain our lifestyle. Sounds lonely, I said. It is, Sophie admitted. Money doesn't fix loneliness. It just makes it more comfortable. We drove in silence for a while, rain pounding the car, lightning occasionally illuminating the dark highway. I thought about Alice, about the custody hearing, about how I was fighting so hard to keep her while these girls were fighting just to be seen by their father. You seem like a good dad, Maya said eventually. The kind who stops in a storm. The kind who shows up. My throat tightened. I'm trying to be. That's more than most people do, Sophie said. I pulled into the hotel parking lot 20 minutes later. The girls gathered their things, and Sophie turned to me before getting out. Thank you, Ethan. Really. You didn't have to help us, but you did. She paused. I hope the judge sees what we see. That you're exactly the kind of father your daughter needs. Me too, I said quietly. They disappeared into the hotel lobby, and I sat there for a moment, rain still hammering my windshield. 3 days. I had 3 days to prepare for the fight of my life. If my story has touched your heart so far, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Where are you reading this from? I'd love to know. I drove home through the storm, my mind racing. When I finally pulled into my apartment complex, it was past midnight. I climbed the stairs to my second-floor unit, exhausted down to my bones. Inside, Alice was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her chin. Mrs. Rachel from next door sat in the armchair reading a magazine. She tried to wait up for you, Mrs. Rachel whispered, standing, but she couldn't make it. Thank you for watching her, I said, pulling out the $20 I'd set aside for her. It was money I couldn't afford to spend, but I had no choice. Mrs. Rachel waved it away. Keep it. You need it more than I do. After she left, I knelt beside the couch, brushing Alice's hair from her face. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. Daddy! Hey, sweetheart! I'm home. I missed you. I missed you, too, baby, she mumbled, still half asleep. Go back to sleep. I kissed her forehead. But she sat up instead, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, are we going to be okay? The question gutted me. She was 6 years old. She shouldn't have to worry about things like this. We're going to be fine, I lied, pulling her into a hug. Mommy says I might have to live with her. That you can't take care of me. Her voice was so small, so scared. I held her tighter. Your mommy's wrong, Alice. I can take care of you. I will take care of you. No matter what happens in that courtroom, I'm your dad and I love you more than anything in this world. I don't want to leave you, she whispered into my shoulder. You won't. I promise. It was a promise I had no idea if I could keep. But as I held my daughter in my small, shabby apartment, rain still pounding against the windows, I made a vow to myself. I would fight with everything I had. For her, always for her. 3 days until the courtroom. 3 days until my entire world would be decided by a stranger in a black robe. 3 days until I'd face Judge Benjamin Whitmore. I just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I was up before the sun. Alice still slept peacefully in her bedroom, the only real bedroom in our tiny apartment. I'd been sleeping on the pull-out couch since we moved here after the separation. It wasn't comfortable, but it meant Alice had her own space, her own sanctuary. I quietly made her lunch for school, peanut butter and jelly with the crusts cut off, just how she liked it, and set out her favorite cereal for breakfast. These small rituals were my anchors, the things that kept me steady when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. My phone buzzed. A text from my public defender, Mr. Clark, meeting at 2 p.m. today. Bring all financial documents. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. The custody hearing was looming, an executioner's axe hanging over my head. Lena, my ex-wife, had every advantage. Money, connections, a fancy lawyer who probably charged more per hour than I made in a day. All I had was the truth. That I loved Alice. That I would do anything for her. That despite working 2 jobs and barely making ends meet, I was there for her in all the ways that mattered. But would that be enough? I thought about what Sophie had said last night, about her father who was always absent despite his wealth. About how money doesn't fix loneliness. I wondered what kind of life Alice would have with Lena. My ex-wife had walked out on us when Alice was 3, claiming motherhood was suffocating her. She'd barely seen Alice in the years since, sending expensive gifts on birthdays and Christmas but rarely showing up in person. Then 6 months ago, she'd reappeared with a vengeance and a new husband, some hotshot real estate developer who'd apparently convinced her that being a mother was back in fashion. Now she wanted Alice full-time, and she was using my financial struggles as ammunition. Your daddy can't even afford to buy you new shoes, she'd said during her last visit, eyeing Alice's worn sneakers. I'd been saving for those shoes, putting away a little each week. But rent had gone up, and then the car needed repairs, and somehow there was never enough left over. I woke Alice gently at 7 a.m., smoothing her tangled hair back from her face. Morning, sunshine, I whispered. Time for school. She groaned, burrowing deeper into her blankets. 5 more minutes. Not today, sweetie. I've got to get to work early. That got her attention. Her eyes opened, suddenly alert. But you'll pick me up, right? You promised to pick me up today. The panic in her voice broke my heart. Ever since Lena had filed for custody, Alice had developed this fear that I wouldn't come back, that I'd disappear just like her mother had. Of course I will, I assured her. Have I ever broken a promise to you? She shook her head, but the worry didn't leave her eyes. What if the judge says I can't live with you anymore? I sat on the edge of her bed, taking her small hands in mine. Alice, listen to me. No matter what happens, I will always be your dad. Always. And I will always, always fight for you. She nodded solemnly. I made something for the judge, she said, reaching under her pillow. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to me. I opened it carefully. It was a crayon drawing of the 2 of us, holding hands in front of our apartment building. Above it, in her wobbly handwriting, me and my daddy. Please don't take me away. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak for a moment. Do you think the judge will like it? She asked anxiously. I pulled her into a hug, hiding my face so she wouldn't see the tears. I think the judge will love it, I managed to say. But I didn't know if it would make any difference. In my experience, the system rarely favored men like me, working-class single dads with more love than money, more determination than connections. As we walked to her school, Alice's small hand in mine, I couldn't shake the memory of the twin girls from last night. How strange that moment of connection had felt, that brief window into another world. They seemed so different from me on the surface, privileged, wealthy, and yet somehow, we understood each other. I dropped Alice off at the school gates, crouching down to kiss her cheek. "I'll be right here at 3 o'clock, I promised." "Cross your heart?" she asked, our ritual. "Cross my heart," I replied, making the motion. "I love you more than anything in this world, Alice." "I love you too, Daddy," she said, and then she was gone, swallowed up by the stream of children rushing into the building. I watched until she disappeared, then checked the time. I had 30 minutes to get to the garage for my morning shift, then I'd meet with Mr. Clark during my lunch break, then back to the garage, then pick up Alice, then my evening shift at the coffee shop while Mrs. Rachel watched her. Every minute accounted for. Every dollar stretched to its limit. Everything I did for her. I just hoped it would be enough. The courthouse smelled like old wood and anxiety. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles had gone white. My public defender, Mr. Clark, shuffled through papers beside me, occasionally muttering to himself. The man was doing his best, but I could see it in his eyes. We both knew this wasn't going to be easy. Across the aisle, Lena sat perfectly composed in a navy dress that probably cost more than I made in a month. Her lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Davidson, looked like he ate cases like this for breakfast. Lena didn't even glance at me. She hadn't looked at me once since we'd entered the courtroom. I reached into my pocket, touching Alice's drawing. I'd folded it carefully that morning, promising her I'd make sure the judge saw it. Now I wondered if it was naive to think it would matter. "Remember," Mr. Clark whispered, "when the judge asks, focus on your involvement in Alice's life. School events, doctor appointments, daily routines. Don't get emotional about Lena's absence or her new lifestyle." I nodded, though my throat felt tight with all the things I couldn't say. How Lena had walked out one Tuesday morning, kissing Alice goodbye like she was just going to the store, not disappearing for months. How I'd had to explain to our 3-year-old that Mommy wasn't coming home tonight. How I'd learned to braid hair and bake birthday cakes and kiss scraped knees and be both mother and father to a little girl who deserved so much more. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Benjamin Whitmore presiding. I stood, my legs feeling like they might give out. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. I watched the door behind the bench, waiting for the judge who would decide if I was worthy of being called a father. The door opened, and my heart stopped. Judge Benjamin Whitmore walked in, tall, distinguished, late 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that swept across the courtroom. I recognized him instantly, not from seeing him before, but from the resemblance, those eyes, that strong jawline. I'd seen those features just 3 nights ago in the rain on 2 young women who'd been stranded on the highway. Sophie and Maya. They were his daughters. The judge was their father. No, this couldn't be happening. The judge took his seat, adjusting his glasses as he opened the case file. His eye scanned the first page, and I saw it. The slightest pause. His gaze flicked up, landing directly on me. Recognition passed between us, silent and electric. "Good morning," Judge Whitmore said, his voice steady and authoritative. "We're here today for the custody hearing of Alice Marie Cole. Counselors, are both parties ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," Davidson said smoothly. "Ready, Your Honor," Mr. Clark added, though his voice lacked the same confidence. The judge nodded, but I could see something working behind his eyes. A calculation, a decision being made in real time. "Before we begin," Judge Whitmore said slowly, "I'd like to call for a brief recess. 15 minutes. We'll reconvene shortly." The bailiff looked confused but nodded. "All rise." Everyone stood as the judge exited through the back door. Lena's lawyer leaned over to whisper something to her, probably just as confused as everyone else. Mr. Clark turned to me. "That's unusual," he said. "Did something happen?" I couldn't speak. My mind was racing, trying to process what this meant. The judge was their father, the twins' father, the man I'd helped 3 nights ago. And now that man held Alice's future in his hands. Was this good? Bad? Would the judge recuse himself? Would he hold it against me somehow? 10 minutes crawled by like hours. Then the bailiff approached our table. "Mr. Cole, the judge would like to see you in his chambers." Lena's head snapped up. "Excuse me? On what grounds?" "Just Mr. Cole," the bailiff repeated firmly. Davidson stood. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We object to any private conversation." "The judge didn't ask for your opinion, Counselor," the bailiff said. "Mr. Cole, please follow me." My legs felt like jelly as I stood. Mr. Clark grabbed my arm. "Whatever he asks you, be honest. Don't try to be clever, just honest." I nodded and followed the bailiff through a side door, down a narrow hallway, and into a wood-paneled office. Judge Whitmore stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city below. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," he said without turning around. I sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The judge finally turned, and his expression was unreadable. He walked to his desk and sat down, folding his hands on the surface. "3 nights ago," he began, "my daughters called me from a hotel. They were stranded on Highway 89 in a terrible storm. Their car had broken down, and they'd been there for over an hour in the rain. No one stopped. No one helped." He paused. "Until you did." My mouth was dry. I didn't know who they were, Your Honor." "I know you didn't. That's exactly my point." The judge leaned back in his chair. "They told me about you, about your kindness, about how you had every reason to keep driving. You were exhausted. You had your own problems. But you stopped anyway." He studied me. "They told me about your daughter, about this custody battle." "Your Honor, I swear I didn't." Judge Whitmore held up a hand. "I know you didn't plan this. I know this is pure coincidence. But here's my dilemma, Mr. Cole. I know who you are now. I know you helped my daughters when no one else would, and that creates a problem." My stomach dropped. "You're going to recuse yourself?" "No," the judge said, and my head snapped up in surprise. "I'm not, because I looked into your case last night. I couldn't sleep after Sophie and Maya told me about you. So I read your file. Every page, every document, every accusation your ex-wife has made against you." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Your ex-wife claims you're financially unstable, that you work too much, that you can't provide a proper home for Alice. But here's what I found interesting. She's provided no evidence of neglect, no evidence of abuse, no evidence that Alice is anything other than loved and cared for. What she has provided is a lot of opinions about what a father should be able to afford." I didn't dare breathe. "I also made some calls," Judge Whitmore continued. "Off the record, to Alice's school, to your neighbors, to the parents of her classmates. Do you know what they told me?" I shook my head. "They told me you never miss a parent-teacher conference. That you volunteer for field trips even when you're working double shifts. That Alice talks about you constantly, about the bedtime stories you make up for her, about the park you take her to every Sunday, about how you teach her to be kind." The judge's voice softened. "They told me she's a happy child who loves her father." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I also had someone look into your ex-wife's background more thoroughly," the judge said, something her lawyer was very careful to avoid mentioning. "Would you like to know what they found?" "What?" I whispered. "Lena Cole has been arrested twice in the past year for possession of controlled substances, cocaine. Both charges were dropped due to technicalities, but the arrests are on record. She's also been fired from her job 3 months ago for showing up intoxicated. Judge Whitmore pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. This is a full investigation report. Drug tests, witness statements, documentation of erratic behavior. I stared at the folder like it might explode. Your ex-wife, the judge said quietly, is not fit to have custody of your daughter. She's been lying to this court, and now I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice breaking. You could recuse yourself. Let another judge handle it. I could, Judge Whitmore agreed. But I won't, because 3 nights ago, you showed me something about character that I can't ignore. You helped 2 strangers when you had every reason not to. You showed kindness when you were exhausted. You stopped when everyone else kept driving. He stood up. That's the kind of man I want raising a child. Not because you helped my daughters, but because helping strangers when you can barely help yourself shows who you really are. I couldn't hold it back anymore. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I'm going back out there, the judge said, and I'm going to present this evidence. Your ex-wife's lawyer is going to object. He's going to argue. But the facts don't lie, Mr. Cole, and neither does character. He walked toward the door, then paused. My daughters asked me to tell you something. They said to tell you that Alice is lucky, that she has the kind of father they wish they'd had growing up. His voice grew thick. They were right. I wasn't there for them the way I should have been. But you show up for your daughter every single day. That's what matters. The judge opened the door. Let's go finish this. I walked back into the courtroom in a daze. Lena's eyes were sharp, suspicious. Davidson looked like a predator, sensing blood in the water. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Whitmore took his seat, his expression now completely professional. He picked up the folder I had just seen in his chambers. Before we hear opening statements, the court has received new information relevant to this case. Information that was not disclosed by the petitioner's counsel. Davidson stood immediately. Your Honor, what information? We weren't notified. Sit down, Mr. Davidson. You weren't notified because your client deliberately concealed it. Lena's face went pale. Mrs. Cole, Judge Whitmore said, looking directly at her. You've presented yourself to this court as a stable, responsible parent seeking to protect your daughter from an unfit father. But you failed to mention your 2 arrests for drug possession. You failed to mention being terminated from your employment. You failed to mention that you're currently under investigation for substance abuse. The courtroom erupted. Davidson was on his feet objecting. Lena was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face, but they looked like tears of panic, not grief. Your Honor, these charges were dropped. This is slander. The charges were dropped on technicalities, Judge Whitmore said calmly. The arrests are still on record. The drug tests are still positive. The witness statements are still documented. He held up the folder. This is a full investigation completed by social services. It's all here. He looked at me, and for just a moment, something passed between us. Gratitude. Recognition. Understanding. This court awards full custody of Alice Marie Cole to her father, Ethan Cole. Mrs. Cole, you'll be allowed supervised visitation pending completion of a rehabilitation program. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down, and my world changed forever. I couldn't move. I sat frozen at the table, the judge's words still echoing in my mind. Full custody. Alice was staying with me. She was staying with me. Mr. Clark was shaking my hand, saying something about this being unprecedented, about how lucky we were. But I barely heard him. I was watching Lena across the aisle, watching her crumble as Davidson whispered urgently in her ear, probably already planning an appeal that would go nowhere. She'd lied. She'd tried to take Alice away from me with lies, and it had almost worked. Mr. Cole. The bailiff approached. You're free to go. I stood on shaky legs. I looked up at the bench, but Judge Whitmore was already gone, disappeared through the back door into his chambers. There was so much I wanted to say, so much gratitude burning in my chest. But the moment had passed. I walked out of the courthouse into brilliant sunshine. The storm from 3 nights ago felt like a lifetime ago now. Everything felt different, the air, the light, the weight on my shoulders, all of it transformed in the span of an hour. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Rachel. How did it go? She asked the moment I answered. I won, I said, and saying it out loud made it real. I won, Mrs. Rachel. Alice is staying with me. I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. Oh, thank God. Thank God, Ethan. Alice has been so worried. She kept asking if you were coming back. Tell her I'm coming home right now. Tell her we're going to celebrate. The drive home blurred together, streets and traffic lights and turns I made on autopilot. All I could think about was Alice, holding her, telling her she never had to worry again. When I burst through the apartment door, Alice was sitting on the floor with her coloring books. She looked up, her eyes wide and frightened, searching my face for answers. Daddy! I dropped to my knees and opened my arms. She ran to me, and I caught her, holding her so tightly I thought I might never let go. You're staying with me, I whispered into her hair. Forever. You're staying with me forever, baby. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the bills piled on the counter. Not the second job I still had to work tonight. Not Lena or her lawyer or anything else in the world. Just this. Just Alice. Just the miracle of second chances. Sometimes kindness finds its way back to you. Sometimes angels wear judges' robes. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world gets it right. Alice pulled back, looking up at me with those big brown eyes. Really? I don't have to go. Really? I promise. You're mine, and nothing's going to change that. She threw her arms around my neck and started crying, big, heaving sobs of relief. I cried too, right there on the floor of our tiny apartment, holding the only thing in the world that mattered. Mrs. Rachel watched from the doorway, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I'll give you two some time, she said softly, and slipped out. Can we have ice cream? Alice asked, wiping her nose on her sleeve. I laughed, a real genuine laugh that felt like it came from somewhere deep inside me that had been locked away for months. We can have all the ice cream you want. We went to the small ice cream shop 2 blocks away. She got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles and gummy bears. I got vanilla, and we sat at the little table by the window watching people walk by. Daddy, Alice said, licking her spoon. What made the judge change his mind? I thought about that stormy night, about 2 girls standing in the rain, about making a choice to stop when I could have kept driving. I helped some people when they needed it, I said. And I guess sometimes kindness comes back to you in ways you don't expect. Like karma? Alice asked. She'd learned that word from a cartoon. Yeah, I smiled. Like karma. We finished our ice cream and as we walked home hand in hand, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Cole. This is Benjamin Whitmore. I stopped walking. Your Honor, I don't know how to thank you. What you did today. I did what was right, the judge interrupted gently. That's all. But I'm calling because my daughters would like to see you again to properly thank you. We'd like to invite you and Alice to dinner this Saturday if you're available. I looked down at Alice, who was watching me curiously. We'd be honored, I said. Good. I'll have Sophie text you the address. 7 o'clock and Mr. Cole, bring your appetite. My daughters have been planning this menu for 2 days. Saturday came faster than I expected. I borrowed a tie from my neighbor and made sure Alice wore her favorite dress, the yellow one with sunflowers. We drove to an address in the hills where houses had gates and driveways that could fit 10 of my car. Sophie and Maya answered the door, both grinning. "You came," Sophie said, pulling me into a hug. "Of course we came," I replied. Maya knelt down to Alice's level. "You must be Alice. Your dad's told us so much about you." Alice hid behind my leg, suddenly shy. But Maya just smiled and held out her hand. "Want to see our game room? We have every video game ever made." "Well, almost." Alice looked up at me for permission. I nodded and she tentatively took Maya's hand. As they disappeared into the house, Sophie squeezed my arm. "He's been talking about this dinner all week," she whispered. "I've never seen him like this." Judge Whitmore appeared at the top of the stairs, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. He looked different outside the courtroom, softer, more like a regular father. "Ethan," he said warmly, coming down to shake my hand. "Welcome to our home." In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a thank you dinner. This was the beginning of something none of us could have anticipated when I pulled over on that rainy night. Sometimes family finds you in the most unexpected places. Dinner was loud and full of laughter. Alice came out of her shell, especially when Maya taught her how to play a racing game and let her win. Sophie told embarrassing stories about their father, who took it all with good-natured groans. I sat back and watched, marveling at how quickly things could change. After dinner, while the girls taught Alice a card game, Judge Whitmore led me out to the back patio. The city sprawled below us, lights twinkling like stars. "My daughters told me something the other day," the judge said, staring out at the view. "They said I was never there when they were growing up, that I chose work over them." He paused. "They were right." "You're here now," I offered. "Because of you," Judge Whitmore said. "Seeing what you were willing to sacrifice for Alice, how you fought for her even when everything was stacked against you, it made me realize what I'd been missing, what I'd lost by always putting work first." He turned to face me. "I can't get back the time I lost with them, but I can do better moving forward. And I wanted to thank you for that reminder." "I think," I said quietly, "we were both supposed to meet that night. You needed to see what being present means." And I needed. I needed to remember that good things can still happen, that the world isn't always against you. Judge Whitmore smiled. "My daughters have asked if you and Alice would like to come back next week. And the week after that. I think they're hoping to make this a regular thing." "We'd like that," I said. "We'd like that a lot." We stood there in comfortable silence. Two fathers who'd found something unexpected in each other. Respect. Friendship. Understanding. Inside, we could hear the girls laughing. Alice's high-pitched giggle mixed with Sophie and Maya's voices, creating a sound that felt like family. When it was time to leave, Alice hugged the twins as if she'd known them forever. "Can we come back tomorrow?" she whispered to me. Sophie overheard and laughed. "Not tomorrow, but definitely next weekend. We're going to teach you how to make our special pancakes." As we drove home, Alice fell asleep in the back seat. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her face peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in months. 3 weeks ago, I'd been terrified of losing her. Now, not only was she mine for good, but somehow our tiny family of 2 had expanded to include 3 unexpected people who'd crashed into our lives like a summer storm, sudden, powerful, and ultimately cleansing. Sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born with. Sometimes it's the one you find when you stop to help strangers in the rain. Before I continue, hit that subscribe button now. 3 months later, I sat in the same small apartment. But everything felt different. Alice was asleep in her room, and I was looking at the photos on my phone, pictures from the past few months. Alice and the twins at the zoo. The 4 of us at a baseball game. Judge Whitmore teaching Alice how to ride a bike. My life hadn't gotten easier, exactly. I still worked 2 jobs. Money was still tight. But none of that mattered anymore because Alice was with me. Safe and loved and happy. And I'd gained something I never expected. A family. Not by blood, but by choice. By kindness. By one decision to stop in a storm when I could have kept driving. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie, movie night next Saturday. Maya's choice this time, so prepare for something weird. I smiled and typed back, we'll be there. I set my phone down and walked to Alice's room. She was curled up with her stuffed elephant, breathing softly. I kissed her forehead and whispered, I love you, sweetheart. As I turned to leave, she mumbled in her sleep, love you too, Daddy. I closed the door gently and leaned against the wall, letting the weight of everything wash over me. The fear, the fight, the victory, the unexpected grace of strangers who became family. Judge Whitmore had changed in these months too. He'd cut back his hours at court, started taking Fridays off to spend with his daughters. Last weekend, he'd surprised them with a camping trip, something he'd never done before. It's strange, he told me once while we watched our girls playing in his backyard. I spent years thinking I was giving them everything they needed by working harder, making more money, climbing higher. But I was giving them everything except what they actually wanted, my time, my attention, my presence. I understood. I'd been doing the opposite, giving Alice all my time and attention but struggling to provide materially. Somehow, between our two families, we'd found a balance. The twins had become like big sisters to Alice. They took her shopping, braided her hair, helped with homework. They seemed to genuinely love spending time with her, with us. And Judge Whitmore, Ben, as he insisted I call him now, had become a mentor, a friend. He'd helped me find a better paying mechanic position at a shop closer to home, which meant I could drop the coffee shop job. More money, fewer hours, more time with Alice. It's not charity, he'd insisted when I tried to refuse. It's networking. I know people who know people. That's all. But we both knew it was more than that. It was repayment for a simple act of kindness that had rippled outward, touching all our lives in ways none of us could have predicted. One night in the rain. One choice to stop instead of drive by. One moment of humanity that revealed the best in all of us. The following Saturday, as we gathered in Ben's living room for movie night, I looked around at these people who'd become our family. Maya arguing playfully with Alice about what snacks went best with science fiction. Sophie arranging pillows on the floor into a makeshift fort. Ben pretending to complain about the movie choice while secretly smiling. Everything okay? Sophie asked, catching me watching them. Better than okay, I replied. I was just thinking about how different things could have been. She nodded, understanding immediately. If you hadn't stopped that night. Or if your father hadn't been our judge. Some things are meant to be, I think, she said softly. Some connections are just inevitable. Maybe she was right. Maybe all of this, the storm, the broken down car, the custody hearing, maybe it was all leading to this moment. These people. This family we'd created out of chance and choice and kindness. As the movie started and Alice snuggled against me, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would still be bills to pay, challenges to face. But I wouldn't be facing them alone anymore. And neither would Alice. Ready? Ben asked, remote in hand, looking around at all of us with a warmth that transformed his once stern face. Ready, we all replied in unison. As the opening credits rolled, I thought about how quickly life can change, how one moment, one choice, can alter everything. How sometimes the people you save end up saving you in return. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Sometimes stopping for two girls in a storm saves your entire world. Sometimes the people you help become the people who save you. And sometimes when you fight for what matters most, when you show up and refuse to give up, the universe fights back for you. I, Ethan Cole, had learned that the hard way. And I'd never forget it. So, if you're reading this right now, wherever you are in the world, remember this, kindness matters. Showing up matters. Fighting for the people you love matters. You never know when one small decision, one moment of choosing to help instead of walking away, might change everything. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment to let me know, have you ever had a small act of kindness change your life? I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep showing up, keep being kind, keep fighting for what matters. The end.